Chuck Close paints enormous portraits by breaking faces into grids and filling individual squares with everything from paint to fingerprints to leftover chips of paper pulp. In isolation, the squares have limited meaning, but their organized assembly delivers a remarkably clear portrait. Chuck Close Facebook, the artist's autobiography, functions in much the same way. A group of fifth grade students from PS8 in Brooklyn poses individual questions. Each of the artist's answers offers bits of biography, yet from their careful sequence, a complete flesh and blood portrait of the artist emerges. A flipbook component in the middle allows readers to mix and match foreheads and features and chins from many of Close's own self-portraits, further exploring the expressionistic synthesis of the artist's technique. This ingenious piece of bookmaking delivers a powerful and palpable understanding of the artist and his process. I am delighted to present the 2012 Boston Globe Hornbook Award for Nonfiction to Chuck Close Facebook, published by Abrams Books for Young Readers, edited by Howard Reeves, written by Chuck Close. Joan Sommers and Amanda Freymann will be accepting for Chuck Close.
This here. There. Yeah. All right. We're not going to do this. Okay. I'm sorry, you didn't get to see. Chuck Close is so very honored to accept this award or have us accept it on his behalf, and he's terribly sorry that he can't be here. I have to say that, and my sister's in the audience, she'll appreciate this. I have watched the Oscars since I was 7 years old, and this is the closest I'm ever going to come to getting this. So I want to thank you, the Academy. We thought that this was a fitting way to bring Chuck into the room because these are two of hundreds of self-portraits created by Chuck Close, and we do wish that he could be here. He has been our inspiration. My name is Amanda Freymann, and this is Joan Sommers. And on behalf of Chuck Close and ourselves, we'd like to thank Megan Lambert, Thom Barthelmess, Lauren Adams of the Hornbook Award Committee, and we'd also like to thank Roger Sutton and everyone at the Hornbook, and as well, we'd like to thank Simmons College. We are very new to the children's book business. We are designers and producers of books for museums with a passion for children's books, and I have to say, we're ignorant of the Hornbook Award. And we got the email telling us, and we thought, that's great. And then we got flowers from Abrams, and we thought, oh, this must be a really big deal. And we are now aware of how big a deal it is.
Yeah.
So.
Chuck Close it was quite an introduction that Thom gave. Chuck Close is one of the most acclaimed visual artists in America. He lives and works in New York City, and he's known for large-scale portraits of friends, most of whom are fellow artists, and himself. He paints, draws, takes photographs, and makes prints using every kind of media. Oils, airbrush, paper pulp, pencil, and as Thom mentioned, even his fingerprints. If you're ever in Washington at the National Gallery, there is a probably 9-foot portrait of his wife's grandmother? His wife's grandmother. It's named Fanny, and it was made entirely with his fingerprints into the ink pad, onto the canvas, and it is the most incredible portrait of this woman who was a Holocaust survivor, and the kids asked him in the interview why no one in his work is smiling, and he went on to tell them about making this portrait of Fanny and how by having her have a very what's the word I want? It's a very straight expression. She's not smiling, she's not, frowning, nothing. That it tells you more about, you have to bring to it. You have to read it in many different ways. It's like you were saying about, what you do with a story. It's true. Anyway, I went off track. So the thing about Chuck is his style and process change, but he only paints faces. So his subject matter never does. And Chuck will say that art saved his life. And he was severely learning disabled as a child. He never learned multiplication tables. He adds using the spots on dominoes. He's not a reader. He also had neuromuscular problems. He couldn't play sports. And he suffers from face blindness. So he doesn't recognize people, even people he knows very well. Growing up at a time when children with disabilities were seen as dumb and lazy, it was his talent for drawing, along with the support he got from his parents and teachers, that really saved him. Art was what he did to convince his teachers he was interested in school and to feel good about himself. And for the past 24 years, he has been wheelchair-bound as the result of a spinal artery collapse that left him paralyzed from the chest down. He made a remarkable partial recovery that allows him to continue to paint using a harness to hold his brush. And he credits the discipline and determination he learned as a child overcoming dyslexia for helping him to get back to making art.
So the genesis of this book is that I was hired to work with Chuck in 2007 to oversee the quality control of a retrospective catalog called Work that was published by Prestol, an adult book. And I had the real privilege of working with him over a period of time, and I'm proud to call him a friend. And at some point I asked him if there were any children's books. And there had been a wonderful children's book that was published by DK and it has gone out of print. And that had been the only one. And I said, well, are you interested in doing a children's book? And he said, sure. So I called Joan. I was like, guess what? and we thought, great, but now what? What do we do? And then this idea that is in the middle of the book, this flip book, was what sort of happened first. And he's created so many self-portraits based on this same head-on perspective that at some point we were just playing around and came up with this idea of flipping the pages back and forth. So we had this middle of the book, but we didn't have the book. And we have a third partner named Asha Drake, and she's a wonderful teaching artist, and at the time she was teaching at the studio in the schools in New York. And it was Asha's idea that we put this interview together between the kids and Chuck. And she found the teacher and the class at PS8 in Brooklyn, and she provided the class with learning materials so that the kids studied Chuck. And then we set up this interview, and it was a wonderful, wonderful day. These 12 fifth graders arrived at the studio all full of beans and their questions on index cards. And Chuck wheeled up to the door, come on in. And he just could not have been more delightful. And they sat on the floor and all eager, and he said, so you're 10, 12 years old? He said, let me show you what I was doing when I was your age. And he had brought out these paintings from his childhood to show them. So right off the bat, he sort of said, we're all the same, you guys, And so they started asking their questions off of the index cards. And then at some point we said, maybe you guys want to stretch your legs. Wham! They surrounded the wheelchair, and they never left his side. And as he would wheel around the studio to show them his palette, his paints, they would follow him around. And it was a wonderful day. And that day is what we tried to capture in the book. So we took the questions and we took his answers and we put it together. So yes, he is the author of this book. We just were the people that tried to get it the glue in the paper to put it between boards. And then we thought, okay, who's going to publish this book? And there was only one person, and that was Howard Reeves at Abrams. Where are you, Howard?
He's right there.
There's the man. I had worked with Howard when I was at the Art Institute of Chicago in the publications department. We developed a number of wonderful children's books, and so we knew that he was the person, and he loved the book as we'd hoped he would, and the rest is history. So this book was a true collaboration. Chuck brought his art, his life experience, and his voice, and we added our bookmaking and art education experience to the mix. Chuck graciously opened up his studio to the student interviewers and answered all their questions. He read and commented on the text and image layouts for the book that came out of that interview. He allowed us great latitude with his art. Great latitude, especially the center flip book, which cuts his self-portraits into thirds so that the reader can flip back and forth and compare many of his different processes. Many artists would have objected, but he improved on the idea, suggesting that we include his black and white as well as his color self-portraits. Working with Chuck was and is an extraordinary experience.
You go into a project like this hoping that the story you want to tell, that you think is important, is a story that other people actually are interested in hearing. We knew Chuck's art and life were compelling and would be well received by those who know contemporary art. But we wanted to create a book engaging enough to attract those who don't consider themselves artists or who think that art, capital A, resides only in museums. From the positive reviews, this wonderful award, and the responses from readers, we are optimistic that the book's ability to reach a larger audience, we are optimistic about the book's ability to reach a larger audience, and that is a really good feeling. And I want to say that one of the things that Chuck is so adamant about is how important it is to have art education and art available to children. That every time budgets get cut, it's art and music and theater that get axed. And for him, he wouldn't have made it. Here was a very intelligent person who, did not measure up in all of the conventional ways. And it's just, he's really made it a priority to try to advocate for art and art education. And we hope that this book will continue that cause. This project benefited from having many creative participants, including Asha Drake, who we mentioned, the 12 wonderful students and their teachers at Brooklyn, and at Abrams, Howard Reeves, his assistant Jenna Poshis, and production manager Allison Gervais, marketing director Jason Wells, and Laura Mihalik, who wrote the most incredible itinerary that got us all here on time.
You have to be at the airport at 20 past 3.
That's good. It doesn't happen. But most of all, we are all so honored that Chuck let us help him tell his story. So thank you.
Thank you.